I knew these people.
What people?
These two people. They were in love with each other. The girl was very young, about 17 or 18, I guess. And the guy was quite a bit older. And he was kind of raggedy and wild. And she was very beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
And together they turned everything into a kind of an adventure. And she liked that. Just an ordinary trip down to the grocery store was full of adventure. And they were always laughing at stupid things. He liked to make her laugh.
Welcome to part 2 of our Paris, Texas episode. But before we go into real talk, it's time for PP, our patron pitch. This is where we let our patrons know what they can expect in their exclusive patron feed, and we also let non-patrons know what they're missing out on. So, we're going to start, as usual, with the ground floor. $1 tier, the Travoltis. What do you get if you are on the Travoltis tier? You get our bonus episode. This month is Much Ado About Nothing, Shakespeare adaptation from Kenneth Branagh, probably the master of all Shakespeare adaptations. But does that mean that Alex will like it? I'm a little easier to please when it comes to Shakespeare and period pieces, but Alex, I mean, it's been established that that's a little harder. And so, patron Chaz Fisher, after giving us the latest Jurassic World movie to do on the main feed, he decided to try his luck with another period piece on the patron feed for both of us to discuss. So that's on the patron feed for this month, along with part 1 of Lohan, which is already getting rave reviews. Wait for part 2. We're actually getting ready to record that next week. Alex has pages and pages of homework for me to watch. And can't wait to just dive into that during our extended weekend. Alex, did you decide if we're gonna touch on Lindsay Lohan's musical career in this part?
Yes. So yeah, we'll be talking about that as well. I mean, to what extent, I'm not sure, but we definitely need to bring it up.
And then, of course, you get all the stuff that doesn't make it into the episodes, just what you've come to expect from us. Now you move up a tier to the Winonis and all the other tiers up. You get our pre-recording notes. You get our QVRs. This month, we're doing a dual QVR again for Bad Genius, demanded by Ryan from Spit and Polish. Yet another movie that we've never even heard of, a movie from Thailand. Alex and I are going to watch it sort of together but apart. And we'll do a video about it. If you liked our if Teen Titans Go to the Movies dual QVR, there's going to be more of that, only completely different because of the movie. And then, of course, we have Contrarians After Hours. That's the spin-off show where we tell you about other things that we're watching, that we're reading, listening to, thinking about. Alex, what are you bringing to Contrarians After Hours this time?
Well, Julio, I'm glad you asked. I recently purchased a box set of Elvis movies, and whatever ones I work through by the time we record After Hours for this, I will be discussing. I already watched Viva Las Vegas, but I know Jailhouse Rock is in there and a couple others. I think it's like 4 of his movies and then 2 of his concert films. So, and they're all bite-sized, easily palatable movies. So whatever I get through in that, I will be bringing to the table. Elvis's movies are something that I've always kind of wanted to dip into, and we talked about. I can't remember what it was on, but we talked about
that movie with Kurt Russell and
3,000 Miles to Graceland. Yeah.
Yep.
And I think in that we mentioned just the obscene amount of movies Elvis had, because they're all just the same shit over and over. Viva Las Vegas has Anne Margaret. That's why I watched that first when I got that set. But something was lost when we stopped making those. I've seen a couple of the others prior to this, but whatever I get through before then, hopefully all of them, hopefully I get through the whole box set, but bring that and just discussing how it used to be better, you know? What about you? Well, what are you bringing?
I will also tell you how it used to be better. Maybe. I don't know. I've owned the Criterion of Until the End of the World, another Wim Wenders movie, for at least 2 years. And
Okay.
there was one time where I was about to sit down to watch it and saw that the runtime was a little over 2.5 hours. I was like, maybe not today. But just rewatching Paris, Texas kind of gave me that impetus of like, okay, well, let's knock out the other Wim Wenders Criterion that I own. And I saw that they have Wings of Desire on HBO Max, which I guess is Max now. Max has Wings of Desire, which is another Wim Wenders movie that I've always been curious about because I've seen its sequel, which is also a Wim Wenders movie. It's called Far Away So Close. Inspired the song Far Away So Close, with Stay, in parentheses, Far Away So Close from U2. I saw Far Away So Close when I was in film school. I didn't watch Wings of Desire because it was not available anywhere. But it's I know what Wings of Desire is about. I know it's about an angel that falls in love with a human. And if that sounds familiar, that's because that's the plot of City of Angels, the Nicolas Cage / Meg Ryan joint. I've seen City of Angels, and I remember when I was watching, I'm like, this is like the plot of Wings of Desire, but obviously Hollywoodized. So anyway, I want to see the the Wim Wenders version of City of Angels, which came before, and then why not Until the End of the World? It just seemed appropriate, having finally rewatched Paris, Texas, to just bone up on a little bit more Wenders. See how I feel about him as a filmmaker, because honestly, after this episode, I can tell you how I feel about Paris, Texas, but I don't know that I can tell you how I feel about him as a director, and I feel like that's a question that I should be ready to answer, being a serious cinephile, as I believe myself to be.
All right. Well,
you're like, I've never heard of those movies before. Most people haven't.
Well, I look forward to hearing about them.
Well, hopefully those patrons that are listening are also looking forward to it. Wings of Desire, Until the End of the World, a bunch of silly Elvis movies that made the world a better place, apparently. All that is on After Hours.
Bunch of silly. I resent your tone, sir.
Silly doesn't mean bad.
Touché.
It's just not, Paris, Texas.
There you go.
So if any of that sounds interesting, just check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. Look at the tiers, see if you would like to join the Contrarian supplements.
$1, $3, $5, and $10 are our respective tiers. Head on over to patreon.com/Contrarian Prime. Take a look around. Drop $1 in and, take a virtual tour, so to speak. You get in on the ground floor. You can go all the way back to our very first patron post, our bonus episode on Blue is the Warmest Color. You can catch up on our Roxina mega series and the Lohan series that's currently underway. Hoping to build on the momentum we had with part 1 and carry it all the way through July. So, to all of our current and existing patrons, we love you all dearly. And as I like to say, we are taking and reviewing applications for new patrons, and we will quickly accept them and welcome you into the fray.
He couldn't stand being away from her during the day when he went to work. So he'd quit, just to be home with her. Then he'd get another job when the money ran out. And then he'd quit again.
Speaking of patrons, Julio, Paris, Texas comes to us as part of the patron takeover from Cold Stone, Steve Austin. What did Steven have to say about this? Yay? Nay? Why did this come to we, the Contrarians?
Alex, the most important thing that Cold Stone said in his message is he revealed his real name.
Oh.
Yeah, he went all out. It completely overshadowed his opinion on Paris, Texas, because it turns out Colston Steve Austin is named Brian. He's Brian.
Well, hello, Brian.
Colston Brian. Colston Brian Austin? I don't know. I have a couple paragraphs that he wrote. Before let's close with him. First, let's open with some rotten quotes from the Rotten Tomatoes website.
All right.
We're going to start with Robert Mazzocco from the New York Review of Books, who says, "Though Paris, Texas is the most interesting American film I've seen all year, it is finally not a success. The most interesting American film he saw in 1986. That doesn't seem right.
Did the bootleg just get to his house or something?
Next, Jay Carr from the Boston Globe says, "The glum truth seems to be that Shepard and Wenders have let a great film get away from them." So that sounds like he was with the movie until the end. When did they lose J. Carr? During the extended monologues that closed the movie? That closed it for like 30 minutes?
I guess so. It got away from him.
Yep. And then Barbara Scholgasser from the San Francisco Examiner says, all kinds of allegorical meaning could be read into this movie by any analyst determined and supercilious enough. It wouldn't be worth the trouble. The film is far too full of itself as it is. I mean, it does have a Criterion release.
Yeah, I was going to say, if I didn't like this movie and it didn't work for me, I could certainly see like thinking it's very high on its own farts.
You know this already. I will say it for our listeners. The essay in the booklet, the Criterion booklet, is not written by Wes Anderson or by Noah Baumbach. It is instead written by film critic Nick Roddick. And it also features interviews with Stanton, writer Sam Shepard, and actors Natasha Kinski and Dean Stockwell, and excerpts from Wenders' book of photos written in the West. I have not flipped through this booklet because I wanted to watch the movie and then have this conversation and then delve into all the Criterion supplements. Did you do the same, Alex, or did you already dip your toes into the Criterion special features?
Like I said, the raw Super 8 footage that's used in this movie is one of the supplements on this. But aside from that, I know it has a commentary track that I may have to listen to at some point. I've watched this movie in the past 6 months. I think I brought that up. And for anyone who listened to our After Hours, our discussion of Wes Anderson's films Bottle Rocket and Rushmore, you'll know how I came into some of my Criterion collection, and Paris, Texas is in that same category.
Okay. So, yeah. But still, if you haven't, neither of us has really touched on the supplements for the Paris, Texas Criterion. So that means that we don't really have that exact of an idea of how pretentious this movie is.
Yeah.
Once you've gone through the supplements, then you have a better grasp on it. Now, you know who has a good grasp on Paris, Texas? That would be Brian Colston Steve Austin, who sent us the following message. Hello, I recommended Paris, Texas because it is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I appreciate it more with each watch. I have a few quick notes below. I'll leave it to the Contrarians for in-depth analysis. It is one of the best-looking movies of all time. It has fantastic performances that are not overdone. Scenes that are allowed to breathe without feeling overly long or pretentious. Harry Dean Stanton is especially great in his ability to convey emotions while not speaking for large chunks of the movie. The climatic two-way mirror scene is one of my favorite scenes of all time. The dialogue from the scene takes up about a third of the running time of the soundtrack, and it has been burned into my brain. The movie conveys feelings of loneliness, darkness, humor, and warmth. It is extremely human. I'm looking forward to hearing Julio's and Alex's thoughts on the movie. That is intimidating.
It is.
I do like the idea that Brian's party trick is to just, when he's a few beers in, he starts doing the Harry Dean Stanton monologue from Paris, Texas.
Brian's group of friends are, his buddies, the ones that you hang out with every once in a while. They know he's had too many when he turns the chair around and takes his phone out.
And he knows he's found the one when somebody recites the Shakinsky monologue back to him.
Yes. And when someone goes, the trailer, it's just like, oh my God. Well, thank you for including that note and also for being a patron and bringing this up for us. To me, this movie was always intimidating in theory and idea because, being fucking movie dork like you and I are, I had always heard about this and read about it. And it will always sneak onto people's lists. This ain't, Saving Private Ryan or, oh shit, what's I'm blanking on famous movies. What I'm trying to say is yeah, it ain't a blockbuster. It's not Star Wars or some shit, but at the same time, it's still Silence of the Lambs. I think is a good example. It's not something won Best Picture, but didn't necessarily shake the foundation of the world. I guess Silence of the Lambs has a little bit more pop culture penetration. It seems to come to pass that when there is a movie like this that's so beloved and so seriously praised by a lot of people and like critics as like an all-time classic, there is some paper trail to it that shows that bodies at large also felt this way about it. It won the Palme d'Or, so that's obviously, depending on, what is a big deal to you, could be considered a big deal. That's, I guess as a gigantic fan of Blue is the Warmest Color, it's similar. That won the Palme d'Or, but there's really not a very long paper trail otherwise of, big impact.
It's too soon to tell.
I guess that's true. Who knows? 30 years from now, a Texan and a Peruvian could be talking about Blue is the Warmest Color and like, oh man, what an intimidating movie. So I just remember it was one of those I never really got to because of that. It felt like, is there ever a movie where part of the intimidation of watching it is you're worried you're not going to like it when so many other people do, and not in a way of like Fast and the Furious like it, but people act like it's one of the greatest movies ever made. Does that ever cross your mind before you watch something that's been like a blind spot for you?
Yes, that's one of the reasons why it takes a little bit for me to, sit down and watch a classic movie. Like it took me forever, for example, to watch Casablanca or to get to Citizen Kane, and that's because, they come with those expectations and they have so much history, so much baggage that you can't watch them without that in your mind.
Yes.
So yeah, sometimes it works. Like I love Casablanca, sometimes it doesn't. I don't really care for Citizen Kane, and I just have to live with that. I think that as I've gotten older,
it's your cross to bear.
Yeah, in a way, that's, you learn to just have fun. Like now I can have fun whenever I say I don't like Citizen Kane, and then there's like horrified looks around me, and then I'm like, ha, listen to my podcast. But I think that there are times where it does bother me. With Paris, Texas, see, it's different because when I watched it, I had no idea. I didn't know about the hype. And also when I watched it, it was like, God, at least 20 years ago. So the hype wasn't as big. Now it's 40 years from its release, so it's only grown in estimation. I don't know that it was that big of a classic. When I watched it, it was just like a good movie. Obviously, it won the Palme d'Or, but it was just something that they showed us. Like our teachers were like, "You should watch this one," and so it was not intimidating in that scene. It was more like kind of like homework. But I get it. Like I've had that experience with other movies.
Okay, you want to know what a great example is of something you and I did before we even started the podcast? Was when you nor I had ever seen any of the Before movies, and it had that same kind of baggage coming along with it. Of like, some people act like this is the greatest trilogy ever in filmmaking, and I think you and I went through a similar bouquet of emotions where the middle one was both of our favorites, right?
No, I like the last one better.
That was it. It's me and Reed. The middle one is Reed and I's favorite. So we've been through this before together. Now, not with this, because you had seen this before me, and that was my first time watching this when I had the Criterion donated in my collection. I already had like knowledge of it. And it was one of those, and me too, runtime's intimidating as well. Mm-hmm. Within the past 6 months, I can't remember when or why, but it was like, all right, I'm going to sit down and fucking watch this today.
He started imagining all kinds of things.
Like what?
He started thinking that she was seeing other men on the sly. He'd come home from work and accuse her of spending the day with somebody else. He'd yell at her and break things in the trailer.
We talked about, I believe it was a Patron episode or maybe just an After Hours when we talked about not recently, a year ago, but Licorice Pizza, and we kept using the phrase vibe movie. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that, and like some people may think that term is belittling or something. This is a vibe movie in that if you're with it, it can do no wrong. But Paris, Texas is not a movie that if someone told me I don't like it, my immediate thought, there will be blood. There you go. If someone watched There Will Be Blood and told me I don't like that movie, my immediate thought would be, you're dumb. Like, it has nothing to do. I don't mean that necessarily in that you have a low IQ, but my brain would translate that as I just have no capacity for movies that don't spoon feed me shit, or like I don't want to watch art when I go watch a movie. If someone told me they didn't like Paris, Texas, I could be like, okay, fine. Because like nothing happens for long periods of this movie. And someone could just easily tell me that it's not for them. Like what happens in this movie does not work for me. And as we pointed out in Contrarians Corner, there's a lot of shit you can poke holes in and have a good time with if you want to. But if this movie catches you, as it did for me the first time I saw it, and again upon rewatching, it's just like, I guess that can be a difference in the way like just brains work, like, and difference in like attention and what catches you, what hooks you in, what the buoy in the water. Like this dude's walking through the middle of like, East Jesus Nowhere, Texas. I'm like, how'd he get here? What's wrong with him? What's going on? And then he says this one word. It's like, what the fuck's that mean? And then you learn like, he's fine. He's not like an invalid or anything. He is a broken man, and he's haunted by like the love that he lost. And then he goes and gets his kid, and he makes amends with the kid. And then he goes and finds his wife, and he makes good with them. And then, yes, there are so many unanswered questions at the end. And like so much of like, he stole this car. He kidnapped this child. Where's Dean Stockwell? What the hell's going on?
Sitting by the phone, waiting.
Yeah, exactly. But if the vibe of this movie has you, then yeah, it's going to be fucking fantastic. And you couple that with how incredible this movie looks, from not just the way like certain scenes are framed and shot, but like the on location shooting they did throughout Texas. It's Texas, brother. Like there are things that we talked about in The Last of Us when we talked about it on our Patreon, The Last of Us HBO series. That first episode, I appreciate the effort. Immediately, that's not Texas. This movie, that's Texas. Like throughout this, I just kept saying, "Yep, that's Texas. That's Texas," or "Yeah, that's LA." I've been out there recently. That's kind of what the highway system looks like. So, to me, this movie tells a fucking just unbelievably beautiful story. I just enjoy it thoroughly. However, it is not in that untouchable zeitgeist, that upper tier of movies, to where I can't comprehend how someone couldn't like it. I'm sure you have examples beyond There Will Be Blood and stuff, but there are those movies that I just can't accept that someone doesn't like it beyond just they don't have the capacity for that level of entertainment, art, what have you. This, if someone tells me it's boring, I'm gonna be like, well, that's like your opinion, man.
I think it's funny that out of all the PTA movies, you picked There Will Be Blood. I mean, I know why, because you like There Will Be Blood more than I do, and I think it's a good movie. But I would find a lot more in common between There Will Be Blood and Paris, Texas, in the sense that if somebody told me, yeah, There Will Be Blood, it's just, it meanders, I'll be like, yeah, I can see that. Like There Will Be Blood grabs you because of the strength of the performances and the visuals. But I would say the same about Paris, Texas. It's like if you let those performances grab you, then it's not so much about the plot. It's just about following this character and see what happens next.
Yeah, I think. But
I'm not as high on There Will Be Blood as you are. So for me, There Will Be Blood is not in the zeitgeist.
While I throw it over to you, I'm going to be thinking of something else, because I'm now realizing it's just my massive hard-on that's blinding me for There Will Be Blood, because like Paris, Texas, I don't think there's any dialogue in the first 20 minutes of There Will Be Blood. So
yep.
Allow me to, gestate over here and figure out another movie that works. But Julio, I just said a lot of things, and I'm curious kind of how you feel about not just necessarily what I said, but this movie in general and like the interpretations it could bring.
See, I've had a completely different experience from you, because like I said, the first time I watched it, there was no hype, and now I've come to it with all the hype and just a few memories of that first time watching it. So it was more of a starting it the second time, because the first time I watched it, I was not particularly impressed, but I was so much younger, and it was, I think that the type of heartbreak that this movie is talking about, the really complex emotions that this movie is dealing with, like I was too young to really engage with that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
I just remember, and partly because the teacher made a point of it, just the big scene, the two-sided mirror scene, the big monologues, like that was the big thing, right? When I think he told us, it's like, it's building up to this, and then when it happened, he's like, this is what I told you about. And then when it was over, he was like, wasn't that cool? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I guess it's it's a solid monologue. And going into it this time, like I remember that I knew that we were building to that. I was like, he's gonna go looking for the mom, and he's gonna find the mom, and they're gonna have this really awkward conversation that goes on for a long time. And then I did remember that as it was happening today on the rewatch, I remembered, oh, that's right, he leaves the kid with her, and and my brain was telling me that doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, this movie, and part of it was because I was taking notes for Contrarians Corner, but it's like you said, there's a lot of stuff that you can pick apart, and I think that my brain doesn't reconcile a lot of the decisions the characters make, or the way that some things play out. But watching it now that I'm much older and having a better handling of like the emotions that it's dealing with, and the things that it's talking about, and just also being able to appreciate the beauty of the way it's shot, and in a way, I can enjoy the movie with my heart, even if my brain is struggling with some of the things. So it was a much more rewarding experience watching it, and I've said this before on the show, rewatch movies that you don't like, not right away, but give them 5 years, give them 10 years, because you might find yourself surprised by how much you've changed and how that has actually allowed you to connect with things that you were not connecting before. So all those years ago, I couldn't connect with Paris, Texas. I kind of assumed that it was one of those movies that, all right, well, older people like them, but I'm like, my generation is just not for it. And now I watch it, and I was like, I totally get it. I get why it's so beloved. I get why it has a Criterion release. I get the hype, and it works. Like like I said, the rational side of me is gonna nitpick. Like if I wanted to argue against what Sam Shepard and Wim Wenders are doing here, I would kind of go into what we're talking about towards the end of Contrarians Corner, right? Like where does this movie stand? Where do they stand, the filmmakers, when it comes to the fate of this child, right? Like, is this really the best option to leave him with a mother that barely knows him, that openly admitted that she didn't really want him, and that can barely take care of herself right now? Because that's the implication. That's not me passing judgment on her profession, but the way that she talks about why she left the kid in the first place is that she didn't feel that she could handle being a mother. And how has that changed now? What right does Travis have to make that judgment call for that kid, to say, find his long lost wife and decide, yeah, the kid's gonna be okay with her? Why? Because the kid liked watching her on a home video from 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I mean, that is the part that I struggle with. But like I said, maybe Shepard and Wim Wenders would tell me, like, it's okay. It doesn't have to be a happy ending, They can fool themselves into being happy, and it's okay if you look at it from outside and decide that it's still sad. Like, I understand that there's a very animalistic, just guttural reaction to seeing a mother and a son reunited, and that automatically makes you think like this is the right thing. But I don't know, maybe I am particularly like sensitive to that type of plot twist, where I'm just like, I feel like there's so many children that are being poorly raised, that are in homes that can't really provide for them, or that get stuck with parents that don't really want them, and all that stuff. And so I see this type of ending, and I'm like, Wenders, don't try to sell me this as some sort of triumph of the family unit. This is bad. This is sad, and I buy the characters and I believe their emotions, but I guess I push back against the idea that this is supposed to be a happy ending. Like I said, maybe it's not supposed to be, but I feel like it's meant to be.
From the day the baby was born, she began to get irritated with everything around her. She got mad at everything. Even the baby seemed to be an injustice to her. He kept trying to make everything all right for her. Buy her things, take her out to dinner once a week. But nothing seemed to satisfy her.
I think the ending... Okay, I think the movie is about Travis's journey, and these other characters come into it, but it's just all about him wandering until he does what he thinks he needs to do. And we start off with him while he's aimless. He's like a turtle outside of a terrarium, he's crossing roads he shouldn't, and he's in direct line of danger. And then Dean Stockwell comes along and picks him up and puts him back in the terrarium and, says, all right, stay here, man.
Lovely image.
Harry Dean Stanton on his back, just help. So I think the movie ends in a perfect way for what it's trying to do. Because Travis, in his mind, completed what his mission, journey, what have you, was the way he knew how. And as an audience member watching this, like, man, this is fucked up. You kidnapped this kid, you left him alone. This woman seemed to be trying to rebuild her life and figure things out for herself, and then you kind of just interrupted all that. But he did what he wanted to do, and he got to see it pay off when he saw his son and his ex-wife, or estranged wife, back together. And then he's just going to ride off into the literal sunset and just kind of see what life's next chapter holds. Now, if you want like a happy ending and a sense of completion for this movie in general, you're not going to get that. But the way I interpret this is Travis's journey we're following, and he completes it the way he wants it to. So this is where he would want the movie to end. I know what I'm saying just sounds, for all the joking we do about pretension and shit, I'm wanting to kick my own ass for what I'm saying right here, but that's the way I see this.
You're cleaning your glasses while speaking into the mic.
Yeah, just...
Actually, it's supposed to be Travis's point of view.
I got a Coors Light here when I should have like a $95 glass of scotch or something, that I fucking hate, but I drink it because it's a status thing. All right, so I've been racking my brain real quick. I want to go back to my original point, because There Will Be Blood is a bad example. It's just a movie that I fucking love. So I would say, I think two movies I came up with here. One is Shawshank Redemption, and the other is The Truman Show, in terms of movies I think are pretty fucking perfect. Mm-hmm. And that people saying, oh, I just don't like it, that's immediately going to make me judge you. And it is a character flaw on my part. But like, to hear someone say The Truman Show, they say, I didn't care for it. I didn't get it. I didn't like it. I'm just going to think, oh, okay, well then you're just, you're fucking stupid and don't deserve to see movies. That's, that's where my brain will go. Because what I was trying to make the argument of is this is not one of those. If I
understood the point.
Yeah. I'm just telling our audience right now, because I know someone listening is like, There Will Be Blood fucking sucks, and now someone listening is saying The Truman Show or Shawshank Redemption sucks. But I wanted to kick my own ass after I remembered that the first reel of There Will Be Blood has no dialogue, and I was like, God damn it, I just defeated my own argument. But so yeah, point being, bringing this home, Truman Show, I do not care what you have to say if you say you don't like it. Paris, Texas, let's talk about this. Why don't you like it? That's the difference in type of movie this is what I was trying to express. But all right, so it's Travis's story to me, Julio. It sounds like you're kind of, there's some things as far as being an adult and just knowing how the world works you can't put aside with the ending of this.
Yeah, I think that it's just I guess I can't get past that kid situation, and I really, I don't want to fall into the trap of letting some strong beliefs of mine, which actually they're probably not as strong as I'm making them sound, but sometimes people judge the morality of what's happening in a movie, and basically that makes them not like the movie. And that is, I mean, obviously, if that makes you dislike a movie, that's just what's happening, right? But
yeah,
but I would like to at least be able to separate from, if I think that Travis did the wrong thing here, I can still enjoy the movie, even if I disagree with what he did. I enjoy the movie a little less when the movie's trying to tell me that he did the right thing. And that's it's tricky because the movie it's hands off enough that it doesn't underline its message, I don't think, to where I can really go up to Sam Shepard and Wim Wenders and tell him, like, what the fuck are you doing? Why do you believe this? Like I said, I think it's kind of open to interpretation, although I think that my interpretation is I think that most people watch this movie and they would think, oh yeah, it's framed as happy ending. But I can still enjoy the movie. Like I said, there's times where like that bothers me more. Like, see our pre-persuasion episode. I can find pre-persuasion pretty funny, but if I find that it's like morally weak, that really affected me in that sense, right? I felt that movie was almost like being irresponsible in the way that it was painting certain things. I don't think Paris, Texas is being irresponsible by how it has its characters, finish their journey. It's just that I don't think that it's... I feel that Wim Wenders and Sam Shepard and the other dude that wrote this, I think that they worship the idea of a child needs to be with their biological mother and father, ideally. And that idea is just, I can't really wrap my head around it. I can't not see this movie as the story of a kid that is taken out of a household that loved him and was providing for him, I was taking care of him, and is thrown into this situation that's really confusing. It's going to fuck him up, for years to come. And his future is just uncertain. So I can't not see that journey. And so that kind of spoils it, because I would like to watch this movie and experience it and arrive at a point where I'm just like, it doesn't have to be a happy ending. I just want the movie to be a little more, I guess, to align with the way that I see the world. So to me, the happy ending would be that either Travis or Jane or both of them realize that they have no business raising this child, and they bring him back to Dean Stockwell. And then Travis can still drive into the sunset, and Jane can go back to the club.
So you need the 3-hour cut.
Yes, I need the sequel. It's like picks up 2 weeks after Travis left Hunter with Jane, and Jane is about to just lose her mind because she's racking up all these bills for babysitting, and Hunter is just very needy, and she needs to find a school for him. And the cops are after her because she's technically kidnapped a child. Yeah, that's what I need. Maybe that's what Until the End of the World is about. 2.5 hours. But still, okay, so, that's like the negative part of it. That's why, to me, this is not like the old-timer that I think Brian Stone Cold considers it to be. It's still a hell of a good movie. It's, I watched it and I was captivated, and I made this tweet. I tweeted that I was just gonna like sit back and let you tell me about life, and that's kind of like how I felt watching the movie. I just kind of like sat back and let Wim Wenders tell me about these people, and just kind of let the images envelop me, and he just took his sweet time taking me to this story, and it was okay. It didn't bother me. There's the performance from Harry Dean Stanton, like the character as written, requires a performance that keeps you interested, even though this guy is like, it's giving you nothing. And so kudos to him, because there's, I could see myself losing my patience if the performance was not that good, because I'd be like, why do I care? That's what I was saying in Third Corner, right? Or why do I care? Why do I connect to this guy? At some point, yes, I start with the mystery of like, I want to know what happened. How did he end up in Mexico, dehydrated, almost dying? And why does he want to keep going to Paris, Texas, and whatever? but the mystery only takes you so far. I need to be able to care. And somehow Harry Dean Stanton works his magic. He gives him just enough humanity that I can see past all the barriers of him not talking, or him when he talks, it doesn't make sense. And sometimes he acts almost like a child. Sometimes he acts like he's actually pretty well aware of what's happening. And I just take all of it at face value because his performance is so good.
He just left her there and went back to bed and lay there listening to her scream. Then he listened to his son scream. And he was surprised at himself because he didn't feel anything anymore. All he wanted to do was sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. This is his moment in the sun, and he did a lot of other shit, but this is what everyone talks about with him as an actor in terms of like we didn't get enough mileage out of him or what have you. He is a really unique actor. There's like an energy and a calm he brings to this that in the wrong hands could be like seriously eye-rolling. Like the whole way he carries himself until he finally speaks and everything.
Mm-hmm.
His like, I guess it would be shame. Like he exudes like the shame he's carrying, and kind of watching it again, watching the way he acts throughout the whole first 20-30 minutes of the movie, to me it seems like he wants to talk, but he's just so full of shame and regret that he doesn't know what he could say to make anything better. And Dean Stockwell's fine. I don't think that him and Stanton have much chemistry really, and I think that it kind of impedes what they're trying to accomplish. To me, the movie kind of takes off when it stops being the brother stuff. When they get to LA and they get to the house, and then the different dynamics start coming into the fray. But yeah, I think I can understand why people, with my limited experience to him, I'm not going to be able to recite his filmography page and verse. I have seen him in other shit, but like, to me, this is his movie, and he's synonymous with it, and it's going to be what people bring up very quickly into the conversation when they talk about it, and with good cause. I think more so than anyone else in this movie, he puts himself 100% into it, and it pays off. And of course, if you're with it, up until that point in the movie, his big monologue is very powerful. You realize
if you're not with it, then you leave the room.
Yes, exactly. If you're not with it, you turn your chair around. I mean, you can't watch that and not think to yourself, "Oh man, I get why you guys didn't work out. It sounds really fucked up." But of course, everyone's been in young love before. In his case, middle-aged love. But everyone's had a relationship like that where it starts off so good, and that's what chasing the dragon is, man. You just want that back, even if it tears you apart.
Chasing Amy,
so to speak. I buy all of his emotion in this movie.
I buy him by the end. I think that if the movie didn't provide, when you finally get to that monologue, if that monologue didn't really sell me the horrors that basically wrecked his mind and left him in the state that he is at the beginning of the movie, then I would be mad and I would turn on his performance. Because, that's the other thing. I buy into that performance because I trust the movie to eventually tell me what's going on, right? It's like, don't worry, we're going to get to a point where you're going to understand what happened to him that made him into this kind of erratic person that he is today. And they deliver. I mean, when it gets to the monologue, I mean, that monologue explains everything. And I was like, yeah, no wonder he's fucked up. That was some horrible shit that he went through. I don't think I know that I didn't have that experience the first time I watched the movie. Like I said, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's explanation, okay. But now I really buy it, and he's really good. I agree with you about Dean Stockwell. I know it sounds I don't want to be too because it works. It works anyway. But I think that yes, if you got somebody that had maybe a little more rapport with Harry Dean Stanton, then those scenes would be a little better. It's hard, like I said in Concerns Corner. He's like you said too, like he's talking to a brick wall through a lot of it, and so that's tall order.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be asking a lot of anybody.
I think that if you're a fan of Quantum Leap, if you like Dean Stockwell from his TV work, then maybe that adds a little more of sympathy for his character. Maybe you give him a little more slack, but he's all right. That the show is for Harry Dean Stanton and Natasha Kinski, which we haven't talked about yet. And I think that first of all, we just have to regress to just a very primal level of appreciation. She is unbelievably hot in this movie.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a bit by design, but yeah.
No, but even in the home movies and, at the very end when she shows up for the kid, when she's, not working, she's still, she's gorgeous. And I've seen one other movie with her in it. There's this Wesley Snipes movie called One Night Stand. I didn't think it was very good. It bums me out that that's the only other thing that I've seen her in, because I think she's great in this movie. She doesn't get the screen time that Harry Dean Stanton does, and she makes just as much of an impression.
Well, and she's also given a part that is like so dependent on actual emoting and physical reaction to what's going on, because like her lines are few and far between. Once like his big monologue starts, you know what I mean? Usually in situations like that where there's two characters and there's a big speech going on, it's a back and forth. But in this, she gets two words in every so often, so it's up to her to react. And we as the audience, at least myself, I as an audience member, I can feel what she's going through, and the type of thing that's why they're actors and we're not. When she figures out it's him, just the way like her kind of face drops, like that's the kind of shit you couldn't do if you were trained to. Like it's an inherent instinct, it's an ability you have or not. It's just chef's kiss. Wonderful.
Yeah, she's fantastic. I was waiting for the moment. I was looking for it. I knew that at some point she would realize that was him. I guess I would have expected it, even if I hadn't seen the movie before, because that's what makes sense, right? And so I was paying attention, just like, what is it going to be? What's going to be the thing that tips her enough that she realizes? Because at first when she mentions the trailer, she asks, but that's not entirely it. I remember. I think it's when he talks about the baby, when he mentions about her getting pregnant, that's when she really realizes what's going on. But it's really good. It's wonderful performance. And she has like 3 scenes, if you count the ending, in the movie. It's great. And then, really, the third main character is not Dean Stockwell. It's Hunter. And were you kidding or were you being serious when you said that Hunter Carson acts laps around some of the other actors in this movie?
Well, of course, I was hamming it up for Contrarians Corner, but he's fantastic. Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised because, me, child actors, I was bracing myself for, not just a precocious kid, but I'm like, he's going to go on the road trip and he's going to be there all the time and he's going to try to be funny and cute or whatever, but he's really good. He hits that tone because he is wise beyond his years. He's too smart for a 7-year-old in this movie, but that's fine. I buy it. The performance is good. It's okay that he's precocious. I get it because he's not annoying. He's just smart enough. And I don't know. I didn't see if that kid went on to act in anything else, but even if this is the only thing he has in his filmography, that's good. He made a mark and then walked away.
Yeah, he's excellent. The shit with the walkie-talkies and like explaining stuff to Travis, and then like when they're in the chase and we'll catch up and we can wave to her. It's like all his thought. He is wise beyond his years to a certain extent, but his thoughts in the movie all come from a place of a little kid, and the way he presents those thoughts feel genuine and not just like sitting now and I got my fists on my hips and that's about that. You know, the way kids act. Or the way
Kirsten Dunst in Little Women.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. So yeah, he kind of rocks it in this, and yeah, it looks like this was his first credit, and then he did a few other things, but nothing ever on this level. And he was in a Tobe Hooper film, Invaders from Mars.
Wow,
that came out in 1986. But I'm going to take a guess that this is a little bit better. Yes, but all the praise in the world to him, because another thing we've talked about is sometimes little kids as actors, it's just the way the world works. It doesn't mean things wrong with them. They got that one go. They got that one grand slam in them. They can go up to bat and knock it out of the park one time. And this kid certainly did here. And I can't speak to the rest of his career, but I can certainly tell you that he held his own with everybody else in this.
Why didn't you keep him with you, Jane?
I couldn't, Travis. I didn't have what I knew he needed. I didn't want to use him to fill all my emptiness.
Well, it sounds like we're both pretty positive, and that's probably because we are.
Mm-hmm.
Alex, where did you land when it comes to scoring Paris, Texas?
So the first time I watched it, my Letterboxd review is 4 stars, and I think that's fitting. I would give this movie an A. It's not quite that A+ range because I can't think of anything that I would cut out of it, but I can't not say that it doesn't drag at some points. By design, but still, like if gun to my head and I had to say some negative things about it that kept it from being an A+, I could do so. But I mean, an A is still pretty fucking good. It's exceptional. It's above average. So, excellent movie. As I've said this entire time, though, I wouldn't shy away from engaging with a conversation with someone who says like, wasn't for me. What wasn't for you? That there's a lot of constructive discussion I feel that could be had about a movie like this. I will go with an A. Julio, this was your first time revisiting this in some time, and based on the past hour of discussion, it sounds like you came away from it not only with a greater appreciation but a big one. So where are you landing on your rating?
I'm landing at 4 stars, like solid, rock solid 4 stars.
Yeah, that's I don't think I would change my Letterboxd 4 stars, but it's like the hardest 4 stars that you can get.
Yes, you can chip at them, and they're not turning into 3.5 anytime. It's just a good movie. I would recommend it. I would love talking about it with people. It's kind of like what you're saying, right? If you don't like it, tell me what don't you like about it, and we can talk. I don't know enough to even bring this up as a serious conversation point, but the idea that Wim Wenders is German and he's making a movie that's very much about America, or at least very much set in America, and he's really shooting in Texas. I think that there's something to be said about that. I just don't know what, because I don't know him. Like I said, as a filmmaker, I don't really know him that well. I've seen this. I saw Far Away So Close a long time ago, and that movie worked even less for me than Paris, Texas. And then, I own Until the End of the World. So, but I think that I'm curious to see more of his work, just to see how it compares to Paris, Texas. Like, is Paris, Texas his American movie? Because that would be very intriguing, right? Like that's what he decided to make as his American movie. Or from what I remember, I want to say Far Away So Close is set in Berlin, which would make sense. But I don't know. I just I want to explore more of his filmography and then revisit Paris, Texas, and see what the parallels are, what the differences are, and just see how that works out. So I shall report in the after hours. But yeah, this is 4 stars. There might be potential for it to go a little higher. Maybe I will discover a new read on the movie, on its ending, when I'm exploring the Criterion supplements. I'll keep you guys updated.
All right, well, there you have it. Brian, Coldstone, hope you enjoyed it. All of our listeners, hope you all enjoyed it. Any potential first-timers, hope you all enjoyed it. I think you get the point. Julio, what is coming our way next? Is it something also just like tonally complete opposite end of the spectrum?
You couldn't have said it better, Alex. We're going from an artsy 94% Tomatometer score with a Criterion release, very popularly acclaimed. Well, we're going to a movie that is rotten on the Tomatometer, and I want to say universally panned. I've never seen it, but it's called Barbed Wire.
Oh, baby.
Is it Pamela Anderson?
It is Pamela Anderson. 1996 film. Oh, man. The cover of that, just her with the gun to her face. Her mouth is open. I don't even have it in front of me. I just remember like video stores just holding that in front of me, being like, holy shit.
This comes courtesy of Gerald Morris from the Two Peas on a podcast, also patron. And Gerald, I couldn't tell you if he likes this movie or not. He could go either way.
Gerald likes to have fun with us every now and then.
Yeah, so I look forward to just watching it and doing my best to just sell it as the greatest movie ever. Who knows? I may even believe it. Like Alex said, thank you, Brian, for the pick. That was Paris, Texas, and that will be Barbed Wire next time. Alex, get us out of here.
All right, so we'll move on into perennial plugs. Start off by giving thanks to the Festive Years who provide our opening and closing tracks. They kick us off with Last Stand, take us home with Summer of 99. Be sure to head over to thefestiveyears.com for any and all Festive Years needs.
Our friend and fellow podcaster Hans Rothbieser is the man behind our logo, behind all the graphics on our webpage, our Patreon page, our merch page. That little tomato looking at himself in the mirror, that's Hans's work. If you like that, you can check his website for more of his stuff. Mildemonios.pe, that's MILDEMONIOS.pe, where you can reach out to him and tell him how much you like his work. At Mildemonios on Twitter, you can email him, mildemonios@hotmail.com. You can listen to his podcast, Nación Combi, which is about Peruvian current affairs, and Marginal, which is about economy. You can check out his books. He has a bunch of books about zombies. Most recent one, Historia del Perú, is a fake zombie history book about Peruvian history. I wrote a chapter in that. Imagine that. That's a collector's item right there. So check out Hans's work. Hans, we thank you for your support, as usual.
LateNightGrin.com. Our boys over there. By the time this drops at the end of the month, I'm doing a new Grin Grappler with them, discussing the career and times of one Kevin Steen, Kevin Owens. Those guys have been very helpful, and I know they did some retweeting and helping us spread the word for our recent appearance on Livestream for the Cure, and just do what they can to spread the word of our podcast. So if you are one of the afflicted, one of the diseased that love the sport of professional wrestling, LateNightGrin.com has you covered for any thoughts on modern happenings and also watch-alongs of some classic retro footage. So Joe, Matt, Oracle, Bob, love y'all. Thank y'all for the support. We continue to support you. And speaking of support, the support of our social media team, Ms. Zoe Perez and our buddy Coriari, put a lot of work and effort into our social media presence, and we appreciate it greatly. Facebook.com/Contrarian Prime, YouTube.com/@Contrarian Prime, Instagram @Contrarian Prime, and of course our Twitter accounts in the bumper. But our YouTube page, Instagram page, you'll find images, some really great warm-up videos on our YouTube page for you to check out that are also shared through our Facebook page. And just an effort and like an understanding of how to put that shit together that I don't know about you, Julio, but that shit doesn't really click with me. So we're grateful for the social media team that we have, and we are eternally grateful for you, the listening public, as we thank you for tuning in to yet another episode of The Contrarians, where we're right and you're wrong, and we will catch you next time.